Hello.
Hello. So, David, what's coronavirus in your perspective?
My perspective comes from years of study of the energy fields of chakras in combination with research in quantum physics, which are all about the energy world. And the coronavirus, any virus, if you look at it scientifically, is essentially a strand of DNA which is capable of entering a cell and taking over the house of the cell. It lives in the cell and there it can reproduce. It takes over your own DNA and begins reproducing itself. Now, we're living in an age of viruses, and we all know that computer viruses don't come from anywhere. They don't walk into your house and find their way into your computer. They come through electromagnetic fields, through microwave technology. They are energetic phenomena that take on shape and form of an energy pattern within your computer and then disrupt the healthy functioning of the computer. Now, we use the word virus, which comes into humans from somewhere and enters right into your cells and takes over the function of the cell, makes the cell its own cell, and begins reproducing itself and multiplying, and then they reproduce and go and take over other cells, etc. So you have a viral infection, and those cells become quite dysfunctional in their normal function. So how does it enter you? We have the coronavirus coming from somewhere. Let's say it began in China or something, or was manufactured in China if it's has to do with the chemical weapons that people are playing with. But how does it spread? When you consider the impact of viruses on humanity and how everyone, as humans, we have a mind that is quite capable, and what we're finding in modern science is that our minds are quite capable of influencing matter, the material world, and particularly at the quantum field level, which makes up our atoms and molecules. So the human virus, a virus that can affect humans, doesn't need to come through the airwaves. We have a fair amount of mental influence on all of these things. Not that we're aware of it yet. This is all new discoveries in science, and science going into quantum physics, which is the foundation of science, and from there we have biology and physics and chemistry and other things, but it's all based on a view of reality, and the view of reality has changed 180 degrees since I went to school. Over the last 100 years, I've been finding that everything isn't as real as it seems, that everything is actually made of energy. And this brings us into quantum physics. The yogic perspective has always been that way, that everything is made of energy. The energy is divided into these electromagnetic fields called chakras, which are quantum realities. It's the way the energy functions and moves. And we have a strong influence on how that happens. Now, the mind influence on our own DNA is that your DNA is the record of your life. Everything that happens to you becomes part of your life, recorded. The DNA is like your hard drive. It contains the information about you, and it's changeable according to your life, your experiences. And what they're finding in genetic studies, a new term they call epigenetic, which is above the genetic, and the epigenetic is the influence of the mind on the genes, which is now accepted in medical science, modern research, not the old stuff. So we have a certain influence on what our genes, what information they contain, what they're capable of, and this goes right down to the DNA is essentially a moldable function. So when we have from the mind the expectation we see all around us, and you see it everywhere these days, coronavirus, it's becoming a global epidemic. how's it actually being transmitted? Once you consider the influence of the mind is capable of taking your own DNA, and with enough expectation and looking at it and fear and worry, it can change your own DNA into the viral DNA of the coronavirus. It's just a slight change. There's not a lot of difference between the virus DNA, the bacteria DNA, a cat's DNA, and the human DNA. It's all DNA, and it's quite similar, with some changes and some additions in the human level. But considering that, there are some anomalies that have shown up with the coronavirus in the United States. They have found farmers in the Midwest who don't leave their farms. They live at home. They don't even go to town. They send someone else to get their groceries. But they haven't gone anywhere. They haven't contacted anyone else, and all of a sudden they are infected with the coronavirus. The only exposure they've had is through television, the news on TV, which they watch every day. So this is what exactly is happening here. And when you understand the whole concept of mind over matter as it's applied in yoga, it kind of works, the process goes in a reverse order, that you watch TV and you see, oh, people are coming up with these symptoms, it's affecting their breathing, and then you start to feel something, and you've seen all this, you begin worrying about it. Worry and fear shut down your immune system. Let's be clear about that. That's not a new phenomena, that's known in medicine as well, and yet they're spreading the worry and fear. So if you can have this, you see a symptom in yourself and you begin worrying and think, oh, well, maybe I have this virus, and then you start coughing and you think more seriously about it. The more thought you put into this, the more real it becomes. And when you put enough attention into this, then you have this changing of your own DNA to adapt. You've already have the symptoms begin multiplying, and then you change your own DNA into the expected virus. This is all a reality that's been shown in quantum physics. The expectation of the scientist changes the outcome of the experiment. When we have expectations coming through worry and fear about a disease, we are very capable of producing that disease. Now this applies to all disease, and it's something I have been looking at, researching for the last 50 years. I stumbled into these studies back in the 60s, went to India and studied about the chakras, the phenomena of the energetic world, and over the years have seen how much influence the mind has, how much worry and fear interfere with what's happening in our body. Particularly the immune system is one of the first targeted. It needs to function in a healthy, happy way, and as soon as your happiness level goes down, your fear level comes up, the autoimmune system shuts down. It's part of the process of how we function. So we're designed to be in a happier state, and we are put into a fearful state by public news. Now if you look at beyond science, science is my thing and how I've looked at yoga and developed it over the years. In the religions of the world, in the science of yoga, mind over matter is always been stated. That's how it works. In Buddhism, it is stated that everything originates in the mind, and from the mind we manifest the reality. Now Western science is saying exactly the same thing. So the power of the mind to believe in something makes it real. And when we put our expectations and are watching for symptoms, we're going to find something that matches those symptoms. We begin more fearful state, we worry about it, we think about it, our attention is going there, and then we end up manifesting these worst fears. You can apply positive thinking, which needs some cleaning up of the mind, but most people are projecting their worst fears, and because we think about it, and we have not accepted the role of mind yet. And yet this is the foundation of yoga. It's mind over matter. So. Did you have any other questions?
Yeah. So how do you what do you think about the collective fear across the world? So how it impacts the coronavirus and...
Well, yeah, that's the reality. Is it's becoming a collective fear. More and more people are hearing about it, worrying about it. The governments are shutting everything down to try and stop people from moving around, thinking that it's a moving thing, and not realizing that every time they put up a news article, the more the emphasis they put on it, the more we are creating this whole state. It's becoming a global problem because everyone in the world is now thinking about this, and it's not going to stop until we stop thinking about it or change our thinking. So we need this paradigm shift where we stop having the fearful thoughts and realize, hey, I have cell capacity. Our cells make interferon, which is a substance that then changes whether a virus can reproduce or not. It can either enable or disable the reproduction of DNA. And this is our first reaction. And then from there are triggers going to bring in the rest of the immune system for antibodies, white blood cells, killer T cells, etc., all of which cooperate to get rid of the virus. But it doesn't work if we don't believe it works. Belief, again. If we don't know how our body works, the fear takes over, and everything that's being put out to the media is fear and not how we can be enabled to take care of this virus. And yet we have absolute capabilities of doing all this, but it's shut down by the fear syndrome. And the fear syndrome is what's being pushed out through public media.
So what is killing us is not the virus, but the humans being mind.
It's the human replicating the virus, and it's spreading globally. Whether people fly around or not, it's being spread through public media, just like the viruses that influence our computers, like the viruses that come through the airwaves, the microwaves. Mind to mind. The more you believe in something. Again, in Christianity, if you believe a mountain is going to move, and you can move it. Obviously, if you believe in viruses, we can create them, and we are, globally.
And do you believe our breathing can help and heal us from this virus and other disease, other virus?
Again, this has been my field of research for 50-something years, almost 60 years now. Anyway, it's the reality that the breath is our important connection to life. If you stop breathing, obviously you're dead. When you're born, first thing you do is begin breathing. So these viruses, everything from the SARS to the others to the corona, most of them affect our breathing. And one of the reasons that happens is because we don't breathe properly. And even in some very updated research on this virus, they found that the people who are in an alkaline state are not as likely to be affected by the virus. And if you're breathing deeply and your oxygen level is high, you are in an alkaline state. You can also have alkaline foods that will help, but ultimately it's the CO2 buildup that puts us into an acidic state, too much carbon dioxide. Breathing deeply affects this right away. And in the coming videos we're going to show you breathing techniques to enable the autoimmune system, which is all based in the 4th chakra in yoga, and governing heart, respiration, and thymus gland, which is the center of our autoimmune system. Although it's asleep in most adults, it can be awoken and come back to life and produce what we need to get rid of the virus. We cannot count on pharmaceutical corporations and governments to take care of this for us. It's kind of a challenge for humans to make this shift into our own empowerment and realize mind over matter, Our body is the matter. Our mind controls what our body is doing, and we can bring that up. Bring the immune system up to peak performance. So there's an engagement of mind, how we think, fear or not, and various mental techniques in concentration, working with sound, visual concentration. Add to that the breathing and some movement and postures to change the situation for ourselves. And if you have enough people just bringing their immune system up, the virus has no impact.
So let's breathe.
Yeah, let's breathe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.